All right, let's think about this for a second. How does a massive company get all the thousands of little parts it needs to build something complex, say a new car? Or maybe even more critically, how does a hospital make absolutely sure it never, ever runs out of essential life-saving equipment? Well, it all comes down to one core function: purchasing management. But, and this is a big but, this is not just about buying stuff. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and see how purchasing is transformed from this kind of boring back-office task into a seriously powerful strategic weapon, one that can literally make or break a company.
So, okay, when I throw out the term purchasing management, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Seriously, what's that mental picture look like? For a lot of people, and maybe for you too, it's probably something along these lines.
Yeah, you're probably picturing someone sitting at a desk, clicking place order and shuffling invoices. And look, that's not totally wrong. That stuff has to get done. But if that's all you see, you're really only looking at the very, very tip of the iceberg. Because underneath the surface, it's so much more. The reality of modern purchasing is that it's this incredibly sophisticated strategic discipline. We're talking about building a real competitive advantage. Imagine being the company that secures a brand new, game-changing material before anyone else even knows about it. And on the flip side, it's about protecting the entire company from massive risks. I mean, just think about the recent semiconductor chip shortages that brought entire industries to their knees. At its heart, that was a purchasing problem. Okay, so here's the roadmap for our discussion. First, we're going to bust some myths and go beyond just buying. Then we'll talk about the strategic bottom line, how this all affects the money. After that, we'll dive into the core strategic pillars, the real tools of the trade. We'll cover how to manage supplier partnerships, because that's huge. Then we'll look at what it takes to keep the supply chain running no matter what. And to wrap it all up, we'll explore what a future in purchasing might look like for you.
All right, first up, purchasing. Beyond just buying. Let's really dig into how this has evolved from a simple task into a strategic discipline.
So what's the formal definition? Well, it's all about securing the right materials from the right sources at the right time and at the optimal cost to support a company's strategic objectives. Think of it as the 5 rights. And trust me, it's a really delicate balancing act, right? Because if you pay too much, your profits take a hit. If you get the wrong quality, your products could fail. And if you get it at the wrong time, well, your entire production line can just grind to a halt.
This slide nails the before and after perfectly. On the left, you've got the old view, transactional, basically placing orders, processing paperwork, a clerical job, really. But now, look at the right. The modern view is all strategic. It's about managing supplier relationships, mitigating risk, and even driving innovation. It's a complete transformation.
So, what are the primary goals that drive this whole strategic vision? Well, there are 4 big ones. First and foremost, ensuring supply continuity. That's job 1. No parts, no product. Simple as that. Next, managing the sourcing process itself, the whole strategic hunt for the best suppliers. Third is maintaining a healthy supply base. Why? Because you can't put all your eggs in one basket with a single supplier for something critical. And finally, engaging with internal stakeholders. The purchasing team can't operate in a vacuum. They have to be locked in with engineering, marketing, finance, everyone, to know what the business actually needs.
Okay, so we've established that purchasing is strategic, but what does that really mean for the business? Let's get down to it. Let's follow the money and talk about the strategic bottom line. Now get this. For a lot of companies, especially in manufacturing, the amount of money they spend on materials, components, and services is huge. We're talking more than half of their total revenue. Let that sink in. For every single dollar a company earns, more than 50 cents might go right back out the door through the purchasing department. That is an enormous amount of financial leverage and responsibility.
And that right there is where purchasing gets its strategic power. Because so much money is flowing through this one department, even a tiny reduction in purchasing costs, we're talking just 1 or 2%, can have a massive impact on profit margins. It's what we call a direct drop to the bottom line. It's one of the fastest, most effective ways for a company to improve its financial health.
But you know what? It's not always just about the dollars and cents. Let's take a Canadian medical equipment maker. For them, a supply disruption isn't just some line item on a spreadsheet. It can literally impact patient care. Think about it. If they can't get one tiny critical component for a heart monitor, that could mean a life-saving surgery gets delayed. The stakes, they just don't get any higher than that. So the big question is, how do purchasing pros actually manage all of this complexity and risk? Well, they're not just winging it. They have a core set of strategic pillars. Think of it as their professional toolkit that they use every single day.
And it all starts with the data. The first tool is spend analysis. This is basically being a detective for your company's spending habits. You're digging into historical purchasing data. For instance, a Canadian company like Bell might run an analysis and discover something wild. Their Toronto office buys pens from vendor A for one price, while the Montreal office buys the exact same pens from vendor B for a higher price. Boom! That's a perfect, immediate opportunity to consolidate that spending and save some serious cash.
Okay, next up, it's all about clarity. You have to be absolutely crystal clear on what you're buying. If it's a physical product, you use what's called a specification, which lays out all the technical, functional, and quality requirements. But if you're buying a service, let's say you're hiring a consulting firm, you use a statement of work, or SOW. This details everything: the tasks, the deliverables, the timelines. Believe me, getting this right at the beginning saves you from a universe of problems down the road.
Now let's zoom out a little. Instead of thinking about buying things one item at a time, smart companies use something called category management. This means grouping related products or services together and managing them as a single business unit. Take a big Canadian retailer, for example. They're not going to have one person buying Coke, another person buying Pepsi, and a third buying their own store brand soda. No way! They'll have a single beverages category manager who creates a strategy for that entire aisle. This gives them way more leverage to negotiate better prices and to really optimize the whole product mix.
Okay, this next one is absolutely crucial. Total cost of ownership, or TCO. The main idea here is that the cheapest price tag is not always the best deal in the long run. TCO makes you look at the bigger picture, all the costs over a product's entire life. So think about a Canadian utility company buying a huge electrical transformer. Option A has a lower purchase price, sure, but it eats up electricity and needs constant maintenance. Option B has a higher sticker price, but it's super efficient and reliable. Over its 20-year life, Option B might save the company millions. TCO is the tool that helps you see that and make the smarter long-term call.
And here's the process that brings all of this together. It's called Procured to Pay, or P2P. It's the step-by-step workflow. It starts when someone, say an engineer, needs something. That's the requisition. From there, the purchasing team finds a supplier and issues a formal purchase order. Then the goods or services are received, and the final step is processing the invoice and making the payment. Having a smooth, efficient P2P process is just essential for keeping things running and maintaining financial control.
Up until now, we've mostly been talking about things that happen inside the company. But purchasing is really a team sport, and your most important players are often outside your own walls. So let's talk about managing your supplier partners.
And that brings us to maybe the most critical question of all. With literally a world of suppliers out there, how on earth do you choose the right partner?
Well, it's a lot like hiring a key employee. You have to do your homework, and it goes way beyond just looking at the price tag. You've got to check their financial stability. The last thing you want is your key supplier going bankrupt. You need to look at their quality and reliability. You have to know their lead time and their capacity to actually deliver what you need when you need it. You also look at their innovation and technology. And more, you're looking at their ethical and environmental standards. It's a complete 360-degree evaluation.
And here's the key. Once you've picked the supplier, the job's not done. It's just beginning. The best companies practice something called Supplier Relationship Management, or SRM. This isn't about just sending orders. It's about building a real collaborative partnership. We're talking about working together on new product designs, sharing sales forecasts to help them plan. The goal is to create a genuine win-win where both companies benefit and create value in the long term. And this is a strategy that's being embraced everywhere, including right here in the Canadian public sector.
But let's be real. As we have all learned the hard way over the last few years, the world is a pretty unpredictable place, right? A pandemic, a natural disaster, a major shipping lane gets blocked, anything can happen. So, what do you do to keep the supply chain running when things inevitably go sideways?
Well, you need a defensive playbook. Here are 3 key strategies. First up is diversification. This is your classic don't put all your eggs in one basket move. A Canadian tech firm isn't just going to source from Asia. They'll also have suppliers in Mexico and Europe. That way, a lockdown in one part of the world doesn't shut down their whole operation. The second strategy is stockpiling. This just means holding extra or buffer inventory of your most critical materials. Yeah, it costs money, but for something like medical supplies, having that emergency stock is non-negotiable. And finally, you have redundancy. Now, this is the most expensive one, but it's also the most secure. This is like a Canadian food processor having 2 different plants that are both capable of making the exact same product. If one goes down, the other can pick up the slack.
Okay, let's bring all this back to you. let's talk about what a future in purchasing could look like, because it is an incredibly dynamic career path.
So if this sounds interesting, what skills do you need to really succeed here? Well, based on everything we've talked about, you can probably guess. You absolutely need strong analytical skills to dive into all that spend data. You've got to be a sharp negotiator to get the best value for your company. Building relationships is key, so you need to be great with people. And maybe most importantly, you have to be a strategic thinker, someone who can always connect the dots between a single purchase and the company's overall goals.
So, I'll leave you with this one final thought. The question isn't just about whether you want to buy things. The real question is, are you ready to help build the strategic foundation of a global company? Because in today's incredibly complex world, that's what purchasing management is all about. It's not a back office job anymore. It's a seat at the strategy table.